Hey, how's it going? Back with another video, so thanks for hanging out. Got a lot to talk about on today's show, including more info that's just come out on Dennis Condrey of the Midnight Express, who passed away on Friday, March 20th, 2026. We'll also have an update on 3 former WWE wrestlers who just signed with another wrestling company that's currently filming shows for an upcoming TV deal. We'll also have an update on CMLL Wrestling from Mexico actually finally being available in the United States with English commentary. Can you believe that? I never thought I'd live to see the day that happened. As well as I'll have an update on some seriously injured wrestlers, including some tone-deaf comments made regarding one of them who unfortunately will probably never be well enough to wrestle again, which absolutely sucks, as well as a story about WWE trying to hire an AEW wrestler to be one of the referees in NXT before AEW actually hired them. So let's get to all of this. Here's some additional info that's come out recently regarding when the legendary wrestler Dennis Condrey of the Midnight Express unfortunately passed away on March 20th, 2026. It was really sad how it happened. I mean, here he was going to pick up his wife at work, but he never showed up. And then she called him, but he never answered, so she figured something must be really wrong. And then here they found out he had a really bad fall and broke his neck. And he was still alive when they found him, but he was in really bad shape. And they took him to the hospital where he passed away tragically. He was actually 76 instead of being 74, as was originally reported, as his birthday was February 1st of 1950, so he was 76. They said he had cancer 4 times over the last 12 years. Yeah, I mean, a really bad, really rough situation. I mean, people had so many positive things to say about him after he passed away. And he really was a true legend of wrestling that made it look real. I mean, people talked about, like, how good he was at making it look like he was beating the heck out of someone on TV, but he was so good at, like, pulling his punches that, like, he wasn't even, like, touching the other person. You know, I mean, and Dennis Condrey, he left WCW in early 1989, but he was probably better off that way, as Jim Herd, WCW's executive vice president from 1988 to 1992, didn't really see Dennis Condrey or his former tag team partner Bobby Eaton as stars, and eventually former NWA tag team champion Bobby Eaton was just turned into enhancement talent, which was sad to see. I mean, I remember back in like 1996 and like 1997, like watching all these WCW shows and thinking, like, I can't believe that they turned Bobby Eaton into a guy that loses every week. I mean, it's like you'd think when they're writing the scripts of these shows, you'd think they'd have him win a match once in a while, but no! They made him lose every single match. You'd think, like, can't you throw this guy a bone or something and have him beat somebody? Jeez! Good Lord! I mean, this guy, what a legend that contributed so much to the business, and this is how they treat the guy! You know, just like how I was disappointed when I saw, like, you know, in WCW, how they turned Earthquake John Tena. You don't remember that team, Earthquake and Typhoon, the natural disasters in WWE? Well, like, Earthquake John Tena, he goes into WCW, and they turn him into a guy that's always loses. I'm like, what the hell, you know? Ay. Anyway, I'm sending prayers for Dennis Condrey and his family. Next thing I'd like to talk about here is I want to talk about there's 3 former WWE wrestlers that were terminated by WWE on May 2nd, 2025, during a large round of cuts that were made that day, as well as on May 3rd, 2025. Reports have come out in the last few days that the team known as Gallus, consisting of Joe Coffey, Mark Coffey, and Wolfgang, have all officially signed with Major League Wrestling, or MLW. Actually, a great deal of former WWE wrestlers and former talent are currently working in MLW, including Karrion Kross, Scarlett Bordeaux, Donovan Dijak, Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, Matt Riddle, Kushida, Austin Aries, Trevor Lee, Gigi Dolan, who's now going by the name Priscilla Kelly. Then they got Baron Corbin over there, but he's going by the name Bishop Dyer right now. Shotzi Blackheart's over there. And Mystico, who used to go by the name Sin Cara in WWE, he's working over there. As well as Ricardo Rodriguez, he's now going by the name Jesus Rodriguez. And former WWE announcer Rich Brennan, who used to work in WWE from around like 2014 to 2016, he's the play-by-play announcer for MLW, and he's now going by the name Rich Bacchini. They've also got Selena De La Renta and Cesar Duran, formerly of Lucha Underground Wrestling, as well as Alex Hammerstone, formerly of TNA, over in MLW. In MLW, they're currently doing TV tapings, and they say they want to go back to doing weekly hour-long episodes of MLW Fusion in the coming months, like it used to do back when they had a weekly television show on the cable station Reels. Haven't heard any word yet on when MLW Fusion will go back to airing weekly or what channel it will be on. Just hearing that it's in the works as of now. If it doesn't get on TV, you'd figure they'd at least put it on their YouTube channel and or the beIN Sports streaming service. Up next, I wanted to talk about CMLL Wrestling from Mexico that's been around since 1933. And it's now offering their major events as pay-per-views with English commentary. Some months they might only have one pay-per-view, but then on other months they'll even have like 2 or even 3 in a month. And it looks like the company first announced this in December 2025, but this is the first time I'm actually hearing of it, so I figured I'd pass this along. And over the years, I've heard their shows are really good, so I was like, well, if they ever offer their shows with English commentary, yeah, I'd definitely like to check them out. Well, they're now available through Triller TV Plus, which can be found at trillertv.com. Actually, there's a great deal of wrestling companies offering pay-per-views on that site. It has a monthly fee of $7.99 per month or $69.99 for the year, which saves you $26 over the course of the year. And it seems like most of the pay-per-views by CMLL are $7.99 with a Triller TV subscription, or $9.99 without it as a one-time purchase. You can do it either way, a one-time purchase where you can subscribe to the website. However, its most recent one that is put out, I think it was March 20th that it put that out. That one runs about 50 minutes longer than the others, as it runs like about 3 hours in length, and that one goes for $15.99 with a subscription to Triller TV, or $19.99 without the Triller TV subscription. And I'm not getting paid to say any of this. I'm just passing it along because I thought it was interesting, and that's the purpose of this channel, just to pass along information that I think is interesting to, help everybody keep up with wrestling. It seems like keeping up with wrestling, it's like a part-time job right there, Jeez. Anyway, up next, the most recent wrestler that I've heard that's out of action due to a legitimate injury is Kyle O'Reilly, currently of AEW, but he used to be in WWE NXT for years. They're now saying he has another neck injury after dealing with a neck injury a while back. There's no word yet on when he'll return or how serious it is, which leads to talking about Adam Cole of AEW. And he had been in WWE NXT years ago. He was a tag team partner of Kyle O'Reilly. And unfortunately, it seems like Adam Cole, his career may very well be over after taking a really brutal lariat from Kyle Fletcher and getting a bad concussion from it last year. He's still out of action, and this is something that happened summer of last year? I mean, Adam Cole he's had quite a few other concussions over his career, but this one looks to be the one that may have done him in completely. He was going to defend his AEW TNT Championship at the pay-per-view AEW All In Texas on July 12th, 2025, but he ended up vacating the title, and AEW had a 4-way match to crown a new champion. Dustin Rhodes won that match and became the new AEW TNT champion. Knowing all this, naturally, it made a lot of people furious recently in the last few days when they were hearing about Kyle Fletcher was posting online that the AEW pay-per-view All In Texas on July 12th, 2025 was the worst day of his life because he was expecting to compete against Adam Cole for the AEW TNT Championship, but he couldn't because Cole wasn't medically cleared, and Cole relinquished the title due to injury, and it got turned into a four-way match that Dustin Rhodes won. Here, Kyle Fletcher was the one who caused this injury to Adam Cole by brutally lariating his head off that, could very well end Cole's career. And here Fletcher's going to have the nerve to complain here and act like he's the one that's the victim because, here he had his mother flown in to see this pay-per-view and he was hoping to win this championship and it didn't happen because Cole was injured on account of him, oh my God. It just seems completely tone deaf on his part, And up next, I wanted to talk about a story that's come out recently about Thunder Rosa of AEW. I thought this story was interesting as it talks about what WWE was paying people in NXT years ago. And back in 2019, Thunder Rosa was considering retiring from in-ring competition when WWE offered her $60,000 a year to be a referee in NXT. Now, this never happened because the tryout kept being postponed due to bad weather from Hurricane Dorian. Well, and then in the following year, we had I'll just say, the bug going around, because if I'm any more specific, the algorithm will shadow ban the video and won't push it out, so I've got to be careful how I word this, because as they say, the algorithm is always listening. So, and anyway, back in 2019, it was said that NXT wrestlers were being paid about $70,000 per year. And NXT wrestlers, we had the referees getting paid about $60,000. And NXT wrestlers don't usually have to deal with the travel expenses and getting hotels, as the show is almost always filmed at the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, Florida. However, during the times NXT wrestlers do have to travel for shows, unlike WWE wrestlers on the main roster who have to pay for their own travel expenses and hotels, NXT wrestlers and NXT referees get all their travel and hotel costs covered by the WWE. So you can't say it's a situation where, they're only making $20,000 to $30,000 a year because they have to pay for all their own travel and hotel costs. Because in this situation, WWE is paying all of that for NXT wrestlers and referees. Anyway, in 2019, Thunder Rosa then went to work for the NWA. It was on their weekly show NWA Power before working for AEW in 2020 and then signing a full-time contract with AEW in 2021. Well, that's it for today's wrestling update. So I'll talk to you again on the next one. Take care.